10% interest rates, a gift or a trap that could cost you everything? It sounds like a win for the American consumer, doesn't it? Credit cards capped at 10%, mortgages below 6%. The headlines are celebrating. But here's the truth. This isn't what it seems. What's happening right now isn't just a change in the financial landscape, it's an experiment, and millions of Americans could lose. You're being told that this is about saving money, but it's actually about something much bigger and much darker. When you peel back the curtain, you'll realize why this victory is anything but. Stick with me, because what I'm about to reveal changes everything. It's hard to believe, but this isn't just a random series of events. What we're seeing in January 2026 is part of a much larger, far more dangerous trend. Let's break it down. On one side, you have President Trump desperate to secure the 2026 midterms. His mission? Make Americans feel like life is more affordable, credit card debt, a record $123 trillion, mortgage rates hovering at 7%. His voters are angry, and he knows he needs to act fast. On the other side, you've got Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, who are supposed to act independently, making tough decisions that politicians avoid. But now, the walls are closing in. The government is pressuring the Fed in ways we've never seen before. And this isn't just a political standoff. It's a collision course with your financial future. When the cost of money becomes a tool for political gain, someone always ends up paying the price. And that someone? It's you. Now, here's where it gets ugly. The government is pushing for 10% credit card caps, and the markets are already reacting. The moment the Department of Justice served grand jury subpoenas to the Federal Reserve in January 2026, things shifted fast. Gold surged past $4,600 an ounce. The dollar, it dropped against the euro and yen. Why? Because the global market realized something crucial. This isn't just about inflation, it's about political power. Notice what's missing here. It's not just interest rates going up or down. It's the fact that political interference is making financial decisions. When global investors start looking at U.S. assets and see a political risk premium, that's when everything changes. This is no longer about basic economics. The real danger? The U.S. is now viewed like an emerging market. This shift, it's not temporary, it's just beginning. And it gets worse. What you're seeing unfold is more than just a blip. It's part of a dangerous pattern. We're witnessing the erosion of independent financial systems that have kept us stable for decades. Think back to the 1970s when Nixon pressured the Federal Reserve to suppress interest rates ahead of the 1972 election. We all know how that turned out. Exploding inflation, a bruising recession, and a complete collapse in trust. Now, fast forward to today, the exact same thing is happening, only this time it's not just about rising prices. The entire framework of the U.S. economy is being rewritten for political gain. And here's the catch. The Federal Reserve's job, since its creation in 1913, has always been to make unpopular decisions for the long-term stability of the economy. But now, that firewall is burning down. And if history teaches us anything, it's this. When you start manipulating the cost of money, someone always ends up holding the bag. Let's get real. This 10% credit card rate cap, it sounds great on paper, but it's a disaster waiting to happen. The math doesn't add up. The base cost of funds for a bank right now is tied to the prime rate, which is 6.75%. So if you cap credit card rates at 10%, that leaves just 3.25% to cover everything. Credit losses, operating costs, fraud detection, and of course the rewards programs that everyone loves. Here's the problem. 82% to 88% of all credit card accounts under a 10% cap become unprofitable. Not just a little unprofitable, deeply unprofitable. So what happens next? Banks start cutting off access to credit. And the 47 million Americans with subprime credit scores, they don't stop needing money. Their cars break down, they need cash now, and with credit cards no longer available, they're pushed straight into the arms of payday lenders. These lenders charge APRs between 300% to 400%. You're going from a 10% cap to the kind of interest rates that destroy lives. The cruel irony here is devastating. A policy designed to protect consumers from high rates is actually driving them into far worse conditions. But it doesn't stop there. The fallout is accelerating. You have the American Bankers Association already warning that 82–88% of credit card accounts will go under. And it's not just banks. America's credit unions, those member-owned institutions that serve the most vulnerable communities, are now speaking out. They're warning that they'll have to cut off lending entirely. These aren't just corporate fat cats protecting their bonuses. These are community-based organizations trying to protect their members. And still, no one in Washington seems to care. Now consider this. As credit access is slashed, what happens to those who need money urgently? They turn to payday lenders, pawn shops, and worse, illegal loan sharks. These people aren't just getting trapped by high interest rates. They're being pushed into the kind of desperation that leads to real harm. What happens if this continues? We're heading straight into a crisis of access to basic credit, and it's about to explode. Now let's talk about you. Imagine being one of the 47 million Americans with subprime credit struggling to get by. Your car breaks down, you need $800 for repairs, and you don't have the luxury of saving up for 6 months. You need credit now. But suddenly, your credit card is closed. The bank says no. Your only option, payday lenders with interest rates that could hit 400%. That's the reality for millions of people right now. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about real people stuck in a system that's supposed to help, but is instead pushing them into desperation. If this sounds familiar, if you've ever been in that position or know someone who has, leave a comment. Let's talk about it. But here's the thing most people won't tell you. This isn't just about interest rates or credit cards. It's about how our entire financial system works. When you start manipulating the cost of money for political reasons, the effects go beyond just consumer debt. What you're seeing is financial repression in action. This is a strategy where the government keeps interest rates below inflation, forcing savers to accept negative returns on their money. And the real kicker? This benefits the government. The U.S. is sitting on a $34 trillion debt. If real interest rates are negative, that debt becomes easier to manage. The government can pay it down through inflation, but the ones taking the hit are pension funds, retirees, and foreign governments holding U.S. bonds. Now, what happens when this becomes the norm? We enter a world where markets don't set prices anymore. Politicians do. And history has shown us that these managed economies don't end well. They can hold it together for a while, but eventually the system collapses under its own weight. So, what happens next? There are two possible paths, and neither one is pretty. On one hand, the political pressure could keep building. The government forces the Fed to cut rates even more, pumping even more cheap money into the economy. That keeps the zombie companies alive, the ones that should have failed long ago, but are now propped up by low interest rates. These companies don't create anything valuable. They just consume capital, draining resources that should be going to stronger, more productive businesses. But then there's the flip side. The bubble eventually bursts. When it does, it won't be pretty. Instead of a gradual correction, it'll be a catastrophic crash. We've seen this movie before in the 1970s when President Nixon's pressure on the Fed led to explosive inflation, followed by a brutal recession. It took Paul Volcker and 20% interest rates to kill that inflation. The question isn't if this will happen again, it's when. Now, here's the brutal truth. We're walking the same path that led to the 1970s disaster. The only question now is whether we'll learn from it before it's too late. The policies we're seeing right now aren't just about interest rates or the economy. They're about rewriting the rules of money itself. And when that happens, everything changes. The government's manipulation of interest rates is already creating financial chaos. The real losers? It's you, the everyday person caught in the crossfire, the 47 million Americans who depend on credit, the workers who will never see the benefits of this so-called affordability, and those who think the 10% cap on credit cards is a gift. They're about to get a rude awakening. This is the great repricing of America, and it's not over. The next move is already in the works. Stay prepared, stay informed, and make sure you're ready for what's coming, because the real game is just beginning. If you found this insight valuable, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'll be back with more deep dives analyzing the financial world as it spirals out of control.